Hello everybody, it's Lazel here with another Magic the Gathering EDH deck tech. Today we are talking about Kroxa, Titan of Death's Hunger. He is a 6/6, 1 black, 1 red legendary creature, Elder Giant, and has the following text. When Kroxa enters the battlefield, sacrifice it unless it escaped. When Kroxa enters the battlefield or attacks, each opponent discards a card. Then each opponent who didn't discard a non-land card this way loses 3 life. And he has the escape mechanic for 2 black and 2 red, plus exile 5 other cards from your graveyard. You may cast this card from your graveyard for its escape cost. Due to the fact that Kroxa sacrifices himself on ETB if he didn't escape, we want to react to the sacrifice trigger. For example, with cards like Nasty End. For 2 mana instant as an additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice a creature. Draw 2 cards. If the sacrificed creature was a legendary, draw 3 cards instead. So on ETB you make all of your opponents discard a card, maybe also lose 3 life, and in trade for that you draw 3 cards, because Kroxa is a legendary creature. You can also play Village Rites. For 1 mana instant as an additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice a creature, draw 2 cards. Deadly Dispute, great in this one. 2 mana instant as an additional cost, sacrifice a creature, and you get to draw 2 cards and create a treasure token. Another cool card, in my personal opinion, is 3 mana Carrion. Sacrifice a creature, put into play a number of maggot tokens equal to the sacrificed creature's power. Treat these tokens as 0/1 black creatures. So you get 6 0/1 black creatures, which you can also sacrifice to other shenanigans, or you can just use them as blockers. Corrupted Conviction, 1 mana instant, draw 2 cards, and you have to sacrifice a creature in addition to its other casting costs. Or for example, just remember all of those maggot tokens. We can also play Plum the Forbidden, 2 mana instant as an additional cost to cast a spell. You may sacrifice 1 or more creatures. When you do, copy the spell for each creature sacrificed this way. You draw a card and you lose 1 life. So we've drawn some value from Kroxa's ETB by sacrificing him, but our opponents will have to discard a few cards. Let's draw some more value from that. For example, with Liliana's Keras, 2 mana enchantment. Whenever an opponent discards a card, that player loses 2 life. Magrim, 3 mana enchantment. Whenever an opponent discards a card, Magrim deals 2 damage to that player. Raider's Wake, 4 mana enchantment. Whenever an opponent discards a card, that player loses 2 life, and it also has the raid mechanic. At the beginning of your end step, if you attacked with a creature this turn, target opponent discards a card. Waste Not is an absolute must-have in this deck. 2 mana enchantment. Whenever an opponent discards a creature card, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Whenever an opponent discards a land card, add 2 black mana to your mana pool. Whenever an opponent discards a non-creature non-land card, draw a card. Quest for the Nihilstone, 1 black enchantment. Whenever an opponent discards a card, you may put a quest counter on Quest for the Nihilstone. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, if that player has no cards in hand and Quest for the Nihilstone has 2 or more quest counters on it, you may have that player lose 5 life. And one of my personal favorite cards, Pain Magnification. 3 mana enchantment. Whenever an opponent is dealt 3 or more damage by a single source, that player discards a card. If you haven't drawn enough value from all of those shenanigans yet, just play Gav's Grimoire. 4 mana artifact. Whenever an opponent discards a card from his or her hand, you may draw a card. You want to keep the discard going? Let's play Siphon Mind. 4 mana sorcery. Each other player discards a card. You draw a card for each card discarded this way. Creeping Dread is really cool in my opinion. 4 mana enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player, that includes you, discards a card. Each opponent who discarded a card that shares that card type with the card you discarded loses 3 life. Just remember Pain Magnification. A really cool on-theme creature is Scythe Spectre, 6 mana 4/4 flying. When Scythe Spectre deals combat damage to a player, each opponent discards a card. Each player who discarded a card with the highest converted mana cost among cards discarded this way loses life equal to that converted mana cost. The Raven Man is great in this deck. 2 mana 2/1 legendary creature, Human Wizard. At the beginning of each end step, if a player discarded a card this turn, create a 1/1 black bird creature token with flying, and this creature can't block. For 4 mana, tap, each opponent discards a card, activate only as a sorcery. Unnerve is a powerful sorcery in this one. 4 mana sorcery, each opponent discards 2 cards. And another really cool card is Words of Waste, 3 mana enchantment, and for 1 generic, the next time you would draw a card this turn, each opponent discards a card from his or her hand instead. Another really cool synergy that you can play is Liliana, Waker of the Dead. 4 mana, 4 loyalty, legendary Liliana Planeswalker. With a +1, each player discards a card. Each opponent who can't loses 3 life. -3, target creature gets -X/-X until end of turn, where X is the number of cards in your graveyard. -7. You get an emblem. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put target creature card from your graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It gains haste. Just imagine putting Kroxa into your graveyard once you've cast him several times and you make it to the point where you can really get the emblem going. You bring him back every turn just with the emblem. Liliana's Triumph is a great synergy card, 2 mana instant. Each opponent sacrifices a creature. If you control a Liliana Planeswalker, each opponent also discards a card. You really want to lose friends? Just play Tergrid, God of Fright in the stack. 5 mana, 4/5 legendary creature god Menace. Whenever an opponent sacrifices a non-token permanent or discards a permanent card, you may put that card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. You will be casting Kroxa a lot in this game, so let's play cards like Color Against Command. 3 mana instant, choose 2, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Target player discards a card, destroy target artifact, and Color Against Command deals 2 damage to any target. Another great way to bring Kroxa back to your hand to recast him for 2 mana is Palace Siege. 5 mana enchantment. As Palace Siege enters the battlefield, choose Khans or Dragon. You will most likely choose Khans here because Khans says at the beginning of your upkeep, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Dragon says at the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Oversoul Cemetery is great in this deck. 2 mana enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have 4 or more creature cards in your graveyard, you may return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Phyrexian Reclamation can also be played. 1 mana enchantment. For 1 generic and 1 black and pay 2 life, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Undertaker is also great in this deck because you need to refill your graveyard with cards that you can use for Kroxa's escape cost, and Undertaker's activated ability really helps. 2 mana, 1/1 human spell shaper. For 1 black, tap and discard a card, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. On attack you can use the trigger of Eternal Taskmaster. 2 mana, 2/3. Eternal Taskmaster enters the battlefield tap. Whenever Eternal Taskmaster attacks, you may pay 2 generic and 1 black. If you do, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. In this deck we'll be needing a lot more sacrifice outlets, so we also play Ayara, Widow of the Realm. 3 mana, 3/3 legendary creature, Elf Noble. Sacrifice another creature or artifact. Ayara, Widow of the Realm, deals X damage to target opponent or battle and you gain X life, where X is the sacrifice permanent's mana value. For 5 generic and 1 Phyrexian red we can also transform Ayara and we can get Ayara Furnace Queen. She is a 4/4 legendary creature, Phyrexian Elf Noble, and says at the beginning of combat on your turn, return up to 1 target artifact or creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste. Exile it at the beginning of the next end step. So we can use Ayara to bring Kroxa back to the battlefield. We will get his ETB trigger, but he will sacrifice himself immediately. But for that we also have some of those sacrifice cards that I mentioned earlier. And in addition, you can also play the OG Ayara, Ayara First of Locthwain. For 3 black, you get a 2/3 Elf Noble, which says whenever Ayara First of Locthwain or another black creature enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. You can tap her and sacrifice another black creature to draw a card. Due to the fact that we'll be making our opponents discard all of their cards in their hand, they will still play the cards that they just drew, so we want to gain control of all of the creatures that they are playing. We will be playing Bloody Betrayal, a 3 mana sorcery, gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap that creature, it gains haste until end of turn and you also create a blood token. By stealing your opponent's creatures, you will just use them as value engines for an attack and then you will just sacrifice them with all of the cards mentioned earlier. We will also be playing Furnace Reigns, 3 mana sorcery, gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap that creature. Until end of turn it gains haste and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player or battle, create a treasure token. Involuntary Employment, 4 mana sorcery, gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap that creature, it gains haste until end of turn and you create a treasure token. Kari Zev's expertise is great in this deck. For 1 generic and 2 red sorcery, gain control of target creature or vehicle until end of turn. Untap it, it gains haste until end of turn. You may cast a card with converted mana cost 2 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. This is great because a lot of those sacrifice instant spells cost 2. Mass Mutiny is an absolute banger in this one. 5 mana sorcery. For each opponent, gain control up to 1 target creature that player controls until end of turn. Untap those creatures, they gain haste until end of turn. And last but not least, we also play Zoran the Lidless Eye. 5 mana legendary avatar horror 4/4. When Zoran the Lidless Eye enters the battlefield, gain control of target creature an opponent controls until end of turn. Untap it, it gains haste until end of turn. And for 1 generic, 1 black, 1 red, creatures you control get +2/+0 until end of turn. Each opponent loses 2 life. This will also be very important for one of our later synergies. You want to win more? You get it. By filling up all of your opponent's graveyards, you can just play Rise of the Dark Realms. 9 9 mana sorcery, put all creature cards from all graveyards onto the battlefield under your control. Or last but not least, you sink all of your mana into a big torment of hailfire. For 2 black and X, you repeat the following process X times. Each opponent loses 3 life unless the player sacrifices a non-land permanent or discards a card. Either with Sauron or with Kroxa on the battlefield. You can also play the World Gorger Dragon combo by simply reanimating World Gorger Dragon from your graveyard with Animate Dead. It ETBs, you exile your Animate Dead, it has to go to the graveyard again because Animate Dead sacrifices it. You return all of your permanents, you float all of your mana and either use Kroxa's ETB or Sauron's activated ability to just drain your opponents completely out, and then you repeat this process until all of your opponents are dead. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know which creature I shall feature next, and if you want to add some cards to the deck list, just add them in the comments below, and I hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye.